Hello and welcome back to the David67 Celtic News YouTube channel. Today going to do a wee quick roundup of the Celtic versus St Mirren 2-0 win for Celtic yesterday in the Cup. Puts us through to the quarter-finals, which will be the weekend of the 9th of March. And after the draw, we had a home tie with Livingston that day. And so I think we got quite a good luck of the draw out of that one, as obviously there were several strong sides we could have played, and I think Livingston probably, in the end, was the best option for us. Thought Celtic actually played pretty well, far from a champagne performance, but for much of the match they kept things under control. I thought Brendan Rodgers' reaction after the match was a wee bit prickly and defensive, and I think it was unwarranted. I am very happy to accept that Celtic have had bad luck with injuries this season. We've missed key players such as Abada, CCV, and Hatate for at least half or more of the season. We've lost players such as Greg Taylor and Daizen Maeda for a few weeks here and there. Stephen Welsh came into the team at the start of the season and then promptly got injured. Very similarly, Mike Nawrocki made his debut and then was away for months again with a hamstring injury. So we've had bad luck, but then pretty much every Celtic manager, every football manager in the history of the world has had bad luck with injuries, and Postecoglou in the first half of the 21-22 season had a lot of problems with injuries, a lot of players coming and going, bringing in players out the cold into the team. And if you look at a lot of the 11s we put out in the first half of Angie's first season, there were a lot of B team players and a lot of backup players and a lot of players who have had a few games for Celtic and then disappeared off into wilderness. However, this is a £3 million manager, and we need to be getting £3 million per year worth of talent out of him. As the online poll that shuts tomorrow from our channel indicated, we think he is an average to good manager, with a few of us thinking he is great or excellent, and a reasonable number, around about 20%, think that he's poor. I think, as I said in previous videos, I think he is probably in the average to good bracket, but I think he does need to do better with these players. I think if he thinks that this is simply down to injuries, I think he's sorely mistaken. Celtic have changed their formation, changed their ethos, changed their tactics. We've lost a lot of the team spirit, and we've lost the "we never stop" attitude that I loved under Ange Postecoglou. However, let's not be too negative. We won the match. We escaped the match, it would appear, with no further injuries. And to the best of my knowledge, we don't have any players who will now be suspended due to yellow cards for the next match against Livingston. So all those are good things. I have to say, was slightly surprised by Brendan Rodgers' starting lineup with Adam Ida and Kyogo both in the team. Looked like Adam Ida was up front by himself, with Kyogo free to roam in the hole behind him. Not really a striker role, not really a midfield role, more of a roaming role. And I thought this actually gave Kyogo, particularly in the first half, a lot of good space to exploit and run into. And I think it actually threw the St Mirren defence and manager off, particularly in the first half, as they couldn't really work out where Kyogo was starting from, ending up, and quite often Kyogo was unmarked. To be fair, St Mirren started better than Celtic. They were on top for pretty much the first 10-15 minutes. Celtic did have a few flashes here and there. However, lovely ball by McGregor out to Luis Palma. Lovely run by Luis Palma down the left wing. Very clever cross to the feet of Kyogo, who ran onto it with great pace and hit a wonderful shot past the St Mirren goalkeeper, putting us 1-0 up. Celtic then were in and out of the game. One of the good things I did think about yesterday's game was that we did get Matt O'Reilly and Callum McGregor much more often into space. Lewis Palmer, I thought, had his best game for several weeks. He had a hand in both goals. He had a hand in quite a few of Celtic's best movements of the day. Daizen Maeda, lots of pace, lots of industry, lots of hard work, up and down his right side, covering into the centre quite often, filling in lots of gaps, and it was a great performance by Daizen Maeda. Apart from, as is very often the case in these videos, his crosses, his final ball, his final pass, very poor. However, to give him credit, lovely cross by Luis Palma in the second half. Matt O'Reilly at the back post, great shot, hits the bar, and Daizen Maeda was on hand to very calmly put the ball in the net and put us 2-0 up, a lead we weren't going to give up. Think star players for Celtic. I think we'd have to give Kyogo and Daizen Maeda good ratings. I think probably for me the key player on the pitch yesterday was Joe Hart. A couple of brilliant saves, particularly from the bicycle kick by Gogic. Did extremely well diving down to his right to save the ball and then scrambled up to push the ball out for a corner. He had a number of very good saves. He commanded his 6-yard box exceedingly well. He got the defence organised much better than usual in front of him. He seemed much more vocal, much more of a leader, and I think Joe Hart deserves special praise over the last few weeks. His performances have improved, and his leadership has improved, and he was nice and vocal, which I think is one of the problems Celtic have in their defence, in that CCV, who is the most senior of all the defenders, isn't a particularly vocal organiser of his teammates. Was a wee bit surprised in a lot of the Celtic sites and television and newspaper sites that both Stephen Welsh and Liam Scales were given very high marks for their performance. I was actually quite concerned on many occasions in that Welsh and Scales don't seem to work as a partnership in central defence. Welsh does have that wee bit more pace to recover from any mistakes that Liam Scales makes in terms of positioning or getting drawn too close to the ball. He hasn't got the pace to cover back, and with Burnaby at left back, there's no one to cover for him, and many times Scales especially, but Welsh also let players such as Gogic and Keelty get free in the box, and there were several times that St Mirren had very good chances where either Hart saved us, we got in a block, or the St Mirren player messed up. I think on another day, with higher quality strikers, we could easily have conceded 2 or 3 goals, down to mistakes and poor positioning by Welsh and Scales. And so I was actually quite surprised to see them both getting good high marks from various fan sites and pundit sites online. Burnaby had a fine game in terms of his midfield and attacking threat, and very shaky in defence. Good news is that it would appear that Greg Taylor will be back in the lineup at left back, and he is a definite upgrade defensively on Burnaby. It should make us a bit more robust on the left side of defence. However, I have read several articles in the recent days saying that one of the absolute key positions Celtic are going to strengthen in the summer transfer window is left back, and that's been deemed as the one of the top two priorities for the summer transfer window. And I would be delighted if we could get in a taller, stronger, better defending left back who also gives us a threat going forwards. Players such as Beck, Quinton Merlin come to mind, although there are several out there. And for me, particularly when we're thinking about European football, we do need a good defender at left back. I would have loved to have seen Liam Scales playing at left back on this season, as I think he is at left back, a good defensive option with his extra height, and he does actually have the ability to get forward. Pretty good passer, pretty good vision when he's playing in midfield, as he did do on several occasions last year with Aberdeen. And rather disappointed that Rodgers at no point has really looked to using Scales in a left back role or on the left side of a back three central defensive partnership. I have to say, Kyogo and Maeda, fairly quiet game. However, we will give him credit for staying up front, being a pivot for any attack, and as I said, it seemed to create space for Kyogo, O'Reilly, Maeda to go into in the box and be an attacking threat. So, quite a few positives from the match. Thought Kyogo looked, in terms of his spirit and his happiness, back to his best. He did score a nice goal in the first half. Wasn't terribly effective in the second half. Daizen Maeda, I think, was a positive as well. And I think Joe Hart's good form and good leadership very much is a positive. Nice to see both O and Yang getting some game time. Thought Yang looked quite dangerous down the left-hand side. Clearly has a lot more pace than Kuhn, Palma and Abada currently. And that could be important for Celtic, as I think his attacking strengths and pace may be useful. He does need to refine his skills, as there were a couple of times he wasted good opportunities. However, he did look a threat driving at St Mirren's defence when they were a bit tired towards the end. Kuhn, again, very, very disappointing, I thought. So apart from his good 20-30 minutes against Aberdeen, he has been, for me, rather a disappointment so far for Celtic, but I think there's still time for him to improve. Didn't really get into the game, missed a gilt-edged chance late in the game that would have given us a 3-0 win. And as I did say, Burnaby's lack of ability to defend is a concern, and I personally was disappointed with Scales and Welsh, and do think Celtic should actually look to having a better central defensive partnership. I think the two best central defenders we've got are Lagerbielke and CCV. Obviously, CCV this season, a lot of injuries. Scales and Lagerbielke had a good partnership, and I personally would go back to that. Although where Lagerbielke is mentally, I don't know, because obviously he's been, from my opinion, messed about tremendously by Rodgers all season, but particularly at the last minute in the transfer window when he was practically on the plane to Italy to sign his loan deal with a view to transfer with Lecce. So moving on to the future, Celtic next in action against Kilmarnock at the weekend. Good news is we will have, it's thought, Greg Taylor back at left back for that game, which is good. Anthony Ralston likely to be deputising for Alistair Johnston for a few more weeks. Rodgers said that Johnston's being reassessed in 10 days and could be fit to return then, but said that the time off through injury could well be 4 weeks approximately. And one other piece of news I think we need to cover is Abada has been given a few days off by Brendan Rodgers and by Celtic. Rodgers saying that Abada's mind isn't quite in the right place, which is understandable with all the ongoing problems in Israel and in Palestine. And so hopefully a few days away from the pressures of playing for Celtic will allow him to clear his mind, catch up with friends and family and colleagues, as I'm sure he's worried about their safety with all the ongoing problems in that region at the moment, and hopefully allows him to come back in a week or two's time, playing for Celtic at his best, like he did in the 2 seasons under Ange Postecoglou. I think it's also important to remember that he had a rather serious injury throughout the end of 2023, and that also can be very hard for a young player to cope with, having their first major debilitating injury that keeps them away from playing football for the first time in their career since childhood. So that finishes things off for this Monday morning video. For anyone new to these videos in the channel, please do click that subscribe button and do have a wee look at the other videos on the channel, because there are quite a large range of video types and topics on the channel, unlike many of the other YouTube channels. Do think about clicking the like button also, as it does help spread these videos and the channel to other Celtic fans and football fans. And as always, very happy to read your own comments, thoughts, opinions, preferably polite and well reasoned and informative, as I do think one of the main things about this channel, unlike others, is the ability for Celtic fans, particularly older fans like me, to have a chance to have their opinions discussed and debated and shared with other like-minded Celtic fans. So, thanks for listening, thanks for watching, chat again tomorrow, and so goodbye and hail, hail.